The Drive Guys powering your afternoons Monday through Friday on Sactown Sports.
It's bigger than hip-hop, right? It's bigger than just one of 82. It's bigger than basketball. This is a statement game tonight for the city of Sacramento, for the Sacramento Kings. Your boy Drapes and Jay holding it down on the Drive Guys here on Sactown Sports 1140. I'm here at the arena right now. Nothing happening. Guys just setting up. No players out here yet or anything like that. I do believe the Mavs held a shoot-around earlier today as they get ready to take on the Sacramento Kings. Let's bring in our special guest here on the Drive Guys on Sactown Sports 1140. Tim MacMahon of ESPN, NBA reporter, covers the Mavs as well. Tim, thanks so much for jumping on with us, man. How massive of a game is this tonight for both teams, would you say?
Well, look, we knew both these games were going to be huge, and obviously the Mavs had a pretty convincing win, a statement win. I'm sure that after that little smackdown in Sactown, the Kings want to get a little bit of revenge. But obviously, more than anything, neither one of these teams wants to be in the play-in, and it's going to be a tough path for the Kings out of the play-in if they let the Mavs come in and get another one tonight. So certainly high stakes for both teams. I think especially for the Kings at this point.
Yeah, you're right about that. Tim MacMahon of ESPN joining us. Tim, when you look at the Mavs and just their transformation, what can you point to? I know the trades they made back in February, but are even you surprised at how much it's come together and how good they're playing right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think that I'm certainly surprised. And this is a team that wasn't playing well coming out of the All-Star break. They lost 5 out of the first 6 games on the break. They were the worst defensive team in the league during that stretch. And then, as far as what led to the turnaround, I think you have to look at the line change that Jason Kidd made at that point. He plugged Derrick Jones Jr. in. That's the best on-ball defender. That's the guy who guards the De'Aaron Foxes of the league. And they put Gafford in instead of Lively. Lively's done well off the bench, but, since that time, the Mavs are 9-1, and the one loss was the game that Luka Doncic sat out.
Tim, we've been talking about the Mavericks and the different lengths, the type of length they've added to their lineup, and you talked about it a lot right there. And, going back, let's just say first or second month into the season compared to now, what really has been the one thing that you can say the Mavs have completely turned it around in this subject?
Well, look, they got a lot more athletic, and that was the priority during the offseason. It continued to be the priority at the trade deadline. Derrick Jones Jr. and Dante Exum were really good value signings for them that amped up their athleticism. And then they went out and got P.J. Washington and Daniel Gafford at the trade deadline. And look, they gave up, a future pick and a future swap. Those could be very expensive deals, but there's no doubt they have paid immediate dividends. And the Mavericks can put out big lineups now. They can put out athletic lineups now. And they were always going to be able to put the ball in the hole because they've got 2 of the, handful of best offense creators in the league playing in the backcourt.
Tim MacMahon joining us here on the Drive Guys. Tim, when you look back at Tuesday's matchup between these two teams, the length of the Mavs, I thought bothered Sacramento. Kings didn't shoot well. Luka didn't have to do much in the second half, only 2 points. What stood out to you about the way the Mavs were able to handle Sacramento on Tuesday?
Again, I think it's really the defense. And, Joker didn't have a great game against them when they were able to beat the Nuggets. Sabonis obviously didn't have the kind of game that we've seen him have against the Mavericks in the past. I don't want to sit here and tell you that I think that they're going to be able to contain those guys on a constant basis, but certainly encouraging them. Like you said, Luka dominated the first half. It's still close. The Kings obviously make some adjustments to try to prevent him from continuing to light it up, and Kyrie just took the game over. And that's the danger of facing a team that has 2 of those type of talents playing next to each other. It's hard to keep them both out of a rhythm.
Tim MacMahon joining us. And Tim, I forget who we had on the other day, but we talked about, the Kyrie-Luka dynamic and why it's working. And, towards the end of last year, the results in terms of wins and losses didn't show up, but those 2 on the floor together seem to work. Why is it working again this year? What are you noticing about those 2 guys and how they play off each other?
I think the biggest thing that's happened is, especially in clutch situations, they're no longer deferring to each other. They're no, there was almost too much respect between them last year. They didn't butt heads. They just were afraid to step on each other's toes. And, leads to some hesitance, leads to turnovers when they're passing the ball back and forth to the game on the line, like happened in the loss to the Timberwolves last year. And they've just gotten more comfortable. And then they both, like Luka has played at a faster pace. And there was always a question of whether he would really do that or if it was just lip service. He has done that. That definitely helps Kyrie. Luka's also worked on being a catch and shoot threat. So if he doesn't have the ball, it's not like he's just, taking the play off. There have been a lot of factors that the chemistry has never been, and in terms of are they getting along, that's never been an issue. I think they've just learned kind of how they can play off each other, how they can enhance each other's games instead of just operating kind of as individual stars.
Joined by Tim MacMahon of ESPN, one of the best to do it. And Tim, before we definitely let you go here in a few minutes, we have to ask you about where you're at right now, which is the OKC Phoenix game, which is huge for us here in Sacramento. But with the news of Kevin Huerter being gone for the season, which is something I think many Sacramento Kings fans and probably the team expected, moving forward, what's your take on the Kings in the last 9 games and moving into the postseason now that Kevin Huerter is not going to be a part of it?
Well, obviously, with Huerter being out, that they're going to have to lean heavily on Keon Ellis, and I think he's been really quietly one of the breakout players in the league over the last couple months. A guy going from a two-way to really proving that he can be a quality complementary role player. So, they're going to need him to keep playing well, but obviously, this is a stars league, and it's going to come down to can De'Aaron Fox be one of the best closers in the league down the stretch of the season? Can DeMontis Sabonis be a dominant kind of triple threat, obviously putting up big-time rebounding numbers on a consistent basis, facilitating, scoring. They needed those two guys who obviously felt like they had legitimate all-star cases to play like all-stars.
Good stuff from Tim MacMahon. Tim, we see Malik Monk day in and day out, and we think, hands down, he's the front runner for Sixth Man of the Year. I'm sure in Dallas, they think a guy like Tim Hardaway Jr. I'm sure in Milwaukee, they think Bobby Portis. What do you make of the Sixth Man of the Year race, and where does Malik and Tim fit in on that?
I think you might be overestimating what people in Dallas think of Tim Hardaway Jr. Just to be real honest with you, I think Malik Monk's the front runner. I don't necessarily think that's going to be real close. I know there's been talk in Cleveland pumping up Karis LeVert as well. There are other candidates, but again, I don't think that one's going to be particularly close. I think that's Malik Monk's award this year.
And that's from Tim MacMahon, who covers the NBA and the Dallas Mavericks closely. We love to hear that. When you look at the West, Tim, how legit do you think the Mavs are as a threat in the West? And I'll throw Sacramento in that as well. How much noise can they make come playoff time?
Look, I think the Mavericks are more dangerous than the Kings just because I think that they have higher end stars, with all due respect to Sabonis and Fox. We've seen Luka take over playoff series before. We've seen Kyrie take over playoff series before. Having said that, there's not going to be any easy matchups in the first round. None of these teams are nobody really wants to line up and see the Mavericks, but it's not like, if they finish 6th or, even 7th or 8th, that there's real appealing matchups for them either. So I think we're going to see a lot of 6 and 7 game series in the Western Conference.
Wow. Tim, real quick, I want to get to the OKC and Phoenix game before we let you go. We know you're a busy man, but something that struck me right there, and I think this is something we in Sacramento are, we're bludgeoning to get this answer. And it hasn't been presented yet. But when you say Luka and Kyrie have done it, what in your mind, as someone a speciality in national news media, in the NBA, what is it going to take for De'Aaron and Domas in your mind to get that recognition? That's just what you spoke about with Luka and Kyrie.
Look, I think they are recognized as all-star caliber players. They've both been all-stars before, but Luka outscored the Phoenix Suns in the first half of the Game 7 on the road.
Right.
I mean, when the Suns were the number 1 seed in the entire league, Kyrie's hit a Game 7 NBA Finals winning shot. They've just had significantly higher levels of playoff success. And again, look, I understand Luke has only been out of the first round one time. Even in the first round that the series they lost to the Clippers, though, he put up crazy numbers, and he's a perennial MVP candidate. Fox is a phenomenal player. He's not a perennial MVP candidate. There's different levels here, but as far as increasing the recognition on them, that happens in the playoffs. Make a playoff run, and certainly it's possible. I'm not telling you it can't happen. I'm just saying it hasn't yet.
Tim MacMahon of ESPN, we appreciate it. Thanks for jumping on the drive, guys. You can follow Tim on social media, on Twitter, on X at ESPN_MacMahon. Thanks so much for joining us, Tim.
I appreciate it, man.
All right, man. Have a good one. Tim MacMahon out there covering that massive Phoenix OKC game. He also covers the Dallas Mavericks. A big one tonight for the Sacramento Kings. When we bounce back, we continue to take some phone calls, 916-339-1140. Keeping an eye also on the injury report as word has come out that Kevin Huerter is done for the season. You're listening to The Drive, guys, here on Sactown Sports 1140.